Hello guys, in this video we'll be learning how to create an interactive multipurpose input field component that can be used in your design systems in Figma by using one single component. So what I mean is we are going to create one component and we're going to make variations of that component. That's basically what we want to do. So this is very useful when you are using design systems, majorly design systems, because if you are partnering with another designer and you want to create, you want consistency in your design, which is why you have to create a component so that both of you, or depending on the size of the design team, all of you can use the same component and maintain consistency throughout the design. So if you are new to components, don't worry, I'm going to take this one step at a time, and by the end of this video you should be able to create your own text field components like this. And if you are new to this channel, please, I would encourage you to subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be dropping tutorials like this every week and you don't want to miss out on any of it. So you can also turn on the notification bell so that you'll be notified anytime I drop these videos like this. So with that being said, let's get right into the video. So I have created my color palette. So I want to create my text field. So I've created this already, but I'm going to delete it. I'm just going to put it by this side and I'll delete this so that I can recreate it. So basically what we are creating is the label. So using the text tool, let's create the label, which will be the label at the top, the sample text, and we're going to create another one which is the error text or hint text. Let's just call it hint text. Hint text. It can also be used as error text. So that's why I have it in red here. So for this one, we're going to create an auto layout frame because we want to create a container around it to create the text box, just like what you can see there. So I'm going to add auto layout, then I will expand it to like 350. 350 is good enough. I'm going to place this on this side, then I'm going to fill this text box with white, then I'm going to align it to the left just like this. Then I'm going to give it some padding of about 10 to 12. Yeah, then yes, I'm going to select the three of them and put them in auto layout. But before I put them in auto layout, I'm going to put each of them in an individual auto layout. So then once I do that, then I'll select the three of them and I will add auto layout again. So now you can see that we have this in an auto layout, we have this in an auto layout, we have this in an auto layout. So this is supposed to be size 14, right? So let's change the font size to 14 so that it will be the biggest, and let's increase it to like medium. Then this can be light if we have light. Yes, we have light. This can be regular, but we're going to work on the colors. So let's say this color is the deepest color, right? Let's give it this color. Then this one is like the hint text, so let's give it this color. Yeah, something like that. And let's call this one the error text. Yeah, so this is like sample text, this is the error text or hint text, the label, sample text, and hint text. So even the hint text can be smaller than this, it can be 10, depending on whatever you want. So you can make it 10 and make it regular, so it makes more sense like this. So for this auto layout frame, it has a padding of 4 around it, so I'm going to reduce it back to 0, and I'm going to do the same for this. I'm going to change this to 0, change this to 0, right? So now we have been able to create something that looks like this. 1 2 3, right? So now let's give it some some space. Let's space it out. So let's increase the space to 4 points. Then let's give this a little bit of rounded corner, like 6. Yeah, then maybe we can give it a stroke. So I'm going to add stroke just like this. I'm going to use this color too for the stroke. Okay, let's use this blue. So it will look like this. But why I'm not why okay, let's not start with the blue. We'll still use the blue, but let's use this first. Let's use this. Right? No, let's use this. Right? So this is like our first version, right? So we are going to make a duplicate of it. We're going to make a duplicate of it. um Even before we make a duplicate of it, I want us to just turn it to components straight up. Then we'll now be adding every other thing. So this is, it's in no particular order. The steps I'm taking is in no particular order. The only order you have to follow is this first step, to create these three text: the label, the sample, and the hint. So once you combine them into a single auto layout frame, you can maneuver the steps the way you like from there. So once you create the component, you can, if you like, you might not create the component immediately and create the variants and combine them into a component set. But I don't want to go that route, so I want to do it this way so that you won't get confused. So we're going to turn this into a component, then it turns to purple just like this. So we can call this the text feed, right? So we'll come inside this place and rename this layer, or this auto layout frame, to text box, right? Then we'll call this one label. Okay, okay. But the auto layout frame inside will not call it label. So let us call it label. And let's call this one hint, right? So what we want to do is that we want to be able to bring just a variant of this out, just like this, and be able to change everything. So we want to be able to use it. So let's say in an instance where we want to create a sign up form now. So let's bring out a desktop frame. Let's bring out a desktop frame where we can create a sign up form. So let's say we want to create a sign up form, and we're bringing this to the center just like this. Now let me put sign up here. Right, so let's increase the size of this to like 32. Yeah. um okay, semi bold is good. Then let me pick the blue color. So let's say this is the sign up form, right? Let's say this is the sign up form, and we want name to be, we want a field for name, we want a field for email, we want a field for password, we want another field for phone number, just like that, depending on what you need, right? So I can't make the components sufficient for every possibility of things that you need, but based on what you need, you can scale it. So let's say we want it for name now. But usually, what you would do when you create a component is to come inside here and name and change it to name, just like this. Yes, why this is okay is just the only downside to this is that it's very stressful, and you won't be able to reuse this. And when you make any changes on the mother component, it won't affect this. That is the that is the downside, because once you change something that is not connected from a component that's connected to the mother component, it is going to overwrite the whatever the mother component has done to it before, and give it a new format which you added manually, and any changes from the mother component will not affect it again. So if I change this to name now, no, let's say as it is label now, if I come here and change it to name here, it will also change here, right? That's how component works. But if I change this to, let's say, email, it won't change in the other side because this is a child component and this is the mother. So if I change this now to label back, it will no longer affect this because I have I have compromised this child. This child is partially disowned by the mother component, right? So that is why we don't want to do that because we want it to be that when you are using it in a design system, if any changes should be made to the mother component, it should affect everything. So we are going to click on this and reconnect it back to its mother by saying reset all changes, right? So when I reset on all changes, it goes back to label. So we'll now come here. So the first thing we want to be able to do now is to be able to change this text and this sample text. So I'm going to click on this text. I'm going to make sure I'm selecting the text. Then I'll come here. So we can create a property. So the text property is what we are going to create for this component. So we'll create a text property by coming here, right? Let me see, not here. You come under the text section. So the text property is here. This is the content of the text, right? And this is what you are going to use to create the text property. You can see when I hover on it. So we're going to create a text property and call this one label text. So when we create this text property now, what happens? If you come and check our child component, let me delete this. So if you come and check this child component, what happens is that you will now see something here. So anything I change here now, name, what happens? It changes, but when I still make changes here, when I make changes here, it won't affect it. But if I make like the kind of maybe formatting that affects the text, like maybe the weight of the text, if I change it to like light and maybe I change the text to like 48 for example, what happens? It carries it. Can you see? So then I'm going to come back and take this back to 14 and return it back to medium, right? So we have created the text property. So another thing we want to create is we want to create a required notification on the text. So sometimes you might want to create the form and make sure that some parts of the form are required and some parts are not required. So when you want to create a required part of the form, you want to use a star in red. So what we are going to do is we are going to select this text, then we make a duplicate by just pressing Ctrl D. Then I will change the text inside to star. So notice that when I change it to star, what happens? Two of them change, and that's because they are connected by the same text property. So to be able to change this independently and not let it affect this, we have to disconnect this from the text property and create a separate text property for this. Right, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to detach. So once I detach it, then I'll be able to change it conveniently. So we are going to change the color of this text to red. So we want the text um, to be an indication for required fields, right? So for this text, we don't need to change it. We don't the kind of property we are going to apply to this will be different from this because based on what we need here, we want to be changing the text. But here, we don't want to be changing this text. We just want to be hiding it and showing it where necessary, right? So what we will do is, instead of creating a text property here, we are going to create a layer visibility property. So when we come here, create bolding property. So the property will be on and off, right? So once we click this, we will say on. No, we'll say show. Yeah, show true or false. So show, okay, let's say show, or let's just call it required. So just like when you are using like maybe like a plugin or WordPress or any other form maker. So required, when we click this, So when we come back here, after creating the required property, we come back here, we can turn on required and turn it off because it's a Boolean property. It has just two states, either on, either true or false. So when we click it like this, we can turn it on, and when we click it like this, we can turn it off, and we can turn it back on. So since this is name, we want it to be required, we can leave it like that. Then the next thing is we want to put sample text, and we also want the sample text to be unique for each text field that we are creating, or each form field that we are creating in the text, uh, in our sign up form, right? So we want to be able to change this text easily. So we are going to create another text field for this one and call it sample text. So sample text. So we'll create the property, then we'll come here. So let's say the sample text that I want to use for this form now is, say, e.g. John Doe. So you can see. Then we'll come here again. So for this hint text now, we want to create two things, right? So we want to create both. What you know here, we create only text property. We created only text property here, and we created a Boolean property. But here we want to create both text property and Boolean property. So we want to be able to change the message that this text is going to give, and want to be able to control when to turn it on and when to turn it off. So that's why we are going to start with creating the text property. So we'll call this hint. Let's call it hint. Then we can create the property. Then we'll now come here and create Boolean property and call this hint text. Or we can call it int too. It still works as long as you know what you are doing, as long as you understand the name that you used. So you can see that we're already populating this property section of the component now with some properties. We're still going to add more. In fact, at the end of the day, we might have a long list of properties where we can just turn things on and off and change. So now, look at the hint text now. The hint text property is controlled. The hint text property here is controlled by this hint text. So if I turn this off, you will not see the hint text property again. But when I turn this one on back, what happens? You see the hint text property. So let me change this to hint and change this one to hint text so that we will not get confused. So I'll come here, then I'll come under hint, I'll change it to hint text, right? Then I'll change this one to hint, just hint, or let's just call it error error text, right? Or yeah, error. Let's just call it error and call this one error text. So this is just naming something. I'm just trying to name it in such a way that I won't get confused when I'm using it. Although I won't really get confused because when I turn something on and it's not working, then I'll go and correct it. So you can see error. Inside the error text, we have the int text, right? Then for the error, we can turn it on and off, on and off. We can turn this on and off. So again, we want to do something. So here, we want to make sure that, because this text property that I applied it on the text, but I forgot that I put it inside a container, right? Which is the auto layout frame. So we are going to apply this Boolean property to the auto layout frame to error text, so that by the time you add it, you won't be having this excess space. So you can see that the container will respond. So before, when I did not add it, if you turn this thing off, only this one will turn off, only the text will turn off, and you still have this excess space. But now when I did that, you can see that this frame is responding to what I have just done, right? So now we have created for text. So let's say this is sufficient for name. Let's say first name and last name. So let's call this first name, first name. Let's call it e.g. John. Then last name. So I'm creating a duplicate of this and call it last name and call this e.g. Do. Right? So okay, the last name needs a space. So we are now going to come here. So remember that this thing needs to have Hoover states, active states, all of those kind of states, right? So let's what else can we add? So remember that this is good enough for first name, last name, email, email. Let's create email with this one, email, and say e.g. maybe it's xyz at, or let's say sample put at xyz xmail or at email.com, right? Sample at emails.com, just to tell the user that this is going to be the format of your email, right? So now let's say we now need password. So let me give this thing an equal spacing. So let's say we need a field for password now. I want to call this password, right? I want to call this password, and maybe in the sample text of the password we just want to put star star star, just like that, right? But in this field we want them to be able to toggle this thing on and off, right? So what we will do is we will add an icon to this here. So, and this text box can also be used as a search field. So when you want to create a search field where a point where users can click and search for stuff on your system, you can also use it. So we are going to bring an icon into this. So to get the icon, I'm going to be using an icon library called huge icons. Huge icons. So when I open huge icons, I'll come under stroke because that's the only free one. The others are paid. So we search for, is it show? I think show. Yeah, show. So let's bring show first. Then let's bring hide. Okay, I think I like this one. So we have show and hide, right? So I'm going to bring these two icons. I'm going to bring them to a particular spot here. Then I'll move them closer to each other. So the first thing I'll do is I'll click this and I'll press enter. Once I press enter, everything inside will be selected. Then I'll press Ctrl E to flatten it. Then I'll do the same for this. Press enter, Ctrl E. So why I'm doing this is because I don't want any issues when I'm trying to do instance swap for the icons, for the um for the colors of the icon, right? So I don't want this icon to be too big. This is kind of like 24 pixels. I want to reduce it to like 20 or 16. I think 16 is good enough. Then I'll come into it again. I don't want the icon to be this thick, so the stroke is 1.5. I'll just pick 1. Then I want to give it a color, which is this color, I guess. Yes. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, before I copy them, I'm going to convert them to components each. So I'll come here, instead of just clicking the, I'll create multiple components, and I think I want to combine them as variants too. So why I'm combining them as variants is because I want you to be able to click this and to change to this, and click this to change to this. So To do that, we'll switch to prototype. I'll click on this. I'll connect it to this. Then I'll say on click, right? Then I'll connect this back on click. So now what happens is that when this is inside my text box and you click it, it will change to this. And when you click it again, it changes. So sometimes you might not do it like this, so don't even let us do it like this. I'm just trying to show you that you can do it from inside here, because why I want to do it in a separate way is because I want it to actually control the text too. So let's leave it like this for now. Then I'm going to copy this. I'll switch back to the design panel. Then I'll copy Ctrl C. Then I'll come into the text box here. So the first thing I'll do before I paste is I'll click on this text. Then I'll come to hug. I'll switch it to fill. And why I'm doing this is because I don't want to face any errors. So I want this text to take all the space in the box, so that by the time I place this icon here, I'll be able to easily hide the icon and this one will not be moving up and down. So I'm going to press Ctrl V while selecting this text box, right? So once I press Ctrl V, because this one is already taking the space inside the text box, it will just shift itself small and allow the icon that I just pasted to sit at the end of the box. So what we want to do to this is we want to apply a boolean property to it too, which is for the layer visibility. So I'm going to apply boolean property and I'll say right icon. So I don't just want to call it the eye icon because it can be any icon. So it can be a drop down icon, any icon. So I'll say true. Yeah, but I can even leave it as false, but let's just leave it like that. No, let me change it to false so that by default it won't be there. So to change it to false, I'll click the component itself and I'll select and change it to false, right? So when I come here, this is where I will now turn it on. Under password, then I'll switch right icon, I'll switch it on just like this. Now we are moving. So the next thing we want to do is create states for this. So remember I said there's a state for the I when you click it and turn it on. So we're going to create different states for it. So just like we have different states, we don't even have the one for the password here, but we're going to create it in our own component here. So we are going to create different states. So the states we want to create is the active state, the default state, default active hover state. We want to create yeah, then we want to create the field state. So when the text box is filled, we want to create that state too. So what I will do now is I will now click on this plus to create a variant, right? Add variant. So I'm adding another version of this. So I'll call this the default Abby. So we can call this default text box or text field. Let's just call it default. The whole name of the component is text field. So we'll call this variant 2. So based on whatever we apply to this, we'll come and rename this from variant 2 to what we want it to be called. So let's call this hover state now. So in the hover state, what do we want to do? We want it to be that when you hover on this, this will show, this will glow, or the color will become darker. So I'm going to switch the stroke to this. So you can see that this color is darker than this, right? So I'm going to click this and add another variant again. Then that will be the active state, right? So the active state now we have the blue color. So in the active state, we want to just have this no, not this, yes, this. So in the active state, we want to disconnect this text for for active state so that it won't affect this too. So we want it to be different. So change this to this and we'll call it active text. Actually, we don't want to change it itself. We don't want to be swapping it. We just want it to be like this. Then we are going to create another variant. So this is the over. Let me call this active, right? Then another one is the field state, right? So let's say the field state we can change this one. So we change this one to maybe John, or let's say Daniel. Let me not use John again. Daniel. Then I will change this, create a text property for this and say field, not field as in field, as in text field, is field as in field the bottom. Field, field text, right? Then create a property. So what I'm basically doing is I want to have a custom text when the text is filled. And here we don't want, when the text box is filled, we don't want it to carry this color on the stroke again. We want this stroke to go back to this, right? But we want a little difference in the color of the text field. We want it to change from white to this color. I want to get a very, very, very light shade of the color, something like this. Then we want the text inside to carry is it okay, we want it to be black. So I'm going to pick this one. Is that dark enough? Maybe I should darken it by myself and use a custom dark like this. Then I also want to change this to semi bold, right? Or medium. Semi bold might be too much, so let's say medium, right? So this is these are, I already have 1, 2, 3, 4 variants, right? So I'm still going to create another variant. So the variant I'm going to create now will be from this. I'm going to click on this, right? So I want this to be password or show password, right? Yeah, show password. So in this one, I'm going to look for the password icon, right? Then I'll turn it on, right? So I'm going to select the password button all through the entire, I mean the eye icon. I want to select it. I want to do multiple editing. So I want to disconnect it all from this property, and I will show you why I'm doing that later. So then I will unmark this, then I will select only this and apply that property back, right icon, right? So why I did it is because I don't want anything that looks like password to affect text. So I want to be able to use the same group of text inside password to create both text and password. So I want to use the same text field for all. So I will select all, then I will unmark only this and select this and select this. Then I will hide all of them manually, right? So they're not going to be useful there. So let's see how it looks like here if we'll be able to control it here. So we don't have the password here, but here we have password, right? You can see we have password. So what about the right, no, the right icon? So let's see if the right icon is connected to this. Okay, the right icon is connected. Do we have it here? Okay, yes, so we have to change this to show password first, then this will show. So you can see we have the list of all of our variants here. So the variant 4, let me see what variant 4 is that I've not. Okay, this we'll call this field, or yeah, what did I call that property again? Um, yeah, field text. So we'll call this field text so that to show that this is a field text, right? Then I'll come back here, and now I have for this, and I have this for the field for the password. So I can turn off the right icon here and turn it back on too. So then the label and everything is there. So if what I mean by the field text now is here, let's say first name now. We want to call the first name um want it to be that when you land on the first name when you have filled it in your prototype, when you have filled it, want it to show maybe um 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 Hamilton here. Want Hamilton here. Then in the last name, I'm going to switch to field. In the last name, we're going to have Victor here, right? So you can see that both of them are in the field state. So I'm going to select both of them and take them back to default. So don't worry, you'll still see how we navigate and get to from and move from the default to field. So but let's continue. Let's do the second one for the second icon. So I'm going to create this. This is password, show password, right? So let us do hide password. So let's call this one hide password. So because I already created the component set with this icon here, right? I can easily switch the two icon. So off, view off, and switch it to view, right? So I can switch the property. Um, Here we want this to be like star 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 star, right? No, star 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 star. So we have a long star, and here we want to disconnect this. So we even want to disconnect this from the sample text and call this one create. So we'll call this password, hidden password, or hidden, or password off, right? Create property and call this one password on. We are going to disconnect it from the general one and create a property and call it password on, right? And create. So in password on now, we want it to be maybe uh, maybe we want it to be in a password that is visible, something like this, something like that, right? Maybe that's what we want it to look like when it is visible. So what we'll do here is, so here if we switch this to hide password, what happens? Uh, this is supposed to be show password, not hide password. This is supposed to be hide password. Then call this show password. Yeah. So so this is show password and this is hide password, right? So now I think we are done with this. Although if you want to have like a drop down, just a field that is indicated drop down, we can also do that. So we can call this, we can just make a duplicate of this and call this one drop down, and come here. So we are going to have to get that icon first. So I'm going to open huge icons again. So I used Ctrl P to open this. So Ctrl P, then huge icons. So I'm going to come to the stroke again and look for, I'll just search for down, down. So I just want this one or this one. So I think, let me pick this one. Oh, so I want just the stroke. Okay, I can only go for the stroke, so let me just stick with the stroke. So I'll close this, then I'll reduce the size of this to 16 too. Then I will also flatten it, and I will change it to this. So now that I've flattened this one, I don't need to change the color again because I've already changed the color of this ones. So what I'm going to do now is to create an instance swap, right? So even in the first place, this wasn't too necessary, but we've done it already. So we should have just used instance swap to swap it. So what I'm going to do here now is, for everywhere that I have this, I'm going to create an instance swap, right? So I'll come here. So create instance swap property. So the instance swap property is, we can just say swap icon. We can call the property swap icon. Then we'll click on the preferred icons. This is a preferred icon. Which other icon do we have there? So because the second icon that I brought, which is the down icon, I've not turned it to a component, that's why you're not seeing it here, but we'll create the component regardless. So let's come here and create a component with this. So it has to, your icons have to be a component for you to be able to use them across your text field like this. So here I just want to swap the components. I just want to swap the components like this. No. Okay, so it's going to be difficult for me to swap the icon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this one out, and I'm going to bring this one out. Then I'll delete this, right? Because I want to, I want to, I want to let them stand alone. So I'll select both of them and press Ctrl Alt B and disconnect them from the mother component. Then I'll select both of them again and create multiple components with it. So just like that. So this is the one now that will now represent this everywhere we have it. So I'm going to select this, then I'll press Ctrl Shift and R to replace, right? Then I will mark this. Okay, so let me mark this, 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 and this, and turn it off manually, right? So this is where we have password. So this, so from here we can create an instance swap. Yeah, apply instance swap. So we can select that swap icon. No, don't let us use that swap icon again. Yeah, we can still use it actually. We can still use it. So let me select it again. Okay, we have applied it. So what we do here, to be able to swap it now, we have to come to where is the view swap icon. So you can see that it has an exclamation mark here, which means there's something wrong with that property. So we want to choose a default value. So we choose this as the default value now. I will now put preferred icons. We can now add this, and this. as a preferred icon because these are the icons that we have here. So it's now easy for us to switch it. So I'll just come here, I'll switch this. I thought I'll change this. Uh, okay, so I'm going to copy this, right? And I'll replace it with this. Okay, I've done that. But let me just delete that swap, instance swap. Let me delete the property and recreate it with this, right? So that we won't have an issue. So this will be component one, three, three component. Okay, let's rename it to hide and view. Sorry, hide and view, right? So, or show. So this will be show. So I'm going to, let me see if this one has the name. Okay, so let's copy this and replace it again. I'm just going to replace for this last three, right? So we're going to now create the instance swap for it. So hide, we'll just call it icon swap, right? Then I'm going to select the preferred ones to be swapped with. Then I'll create this. Then I'll also create this right icon. I'm going to apply that. We've created that property before, but I'm just reapplying it to this so that we can turn it on and off. So let's you let's switch this now. Okay, so we'll not be able to switch it inside this place. That's it. So let's just call this one drop down, right? So when we come here, that's the mistake I've been making. So we are not supposed to be able to switch it inside this place. So let's call this one drop down. Let's call this maybe country, right? Country. I want to create this. So we just select this, right? And we can say Nigeria as a start, or we say select option, or select country, like that. So we can say select country, just like that. So I hope I've not confused you because I got a bit confused because I wanted to do the icon swap here, which I forgot that I'm supposed to do it here. So, but I believe that if you watch this video and watch it again, you won't be confused, right? And if you have any question, you can always ask me from the comment section. So um we are done with the components, and you can see that we have been able to create one, two, three, four, five different types of variants from this component. So you can, so before we conclude this tutorial, let us do a little prototyping here so that we can easily present it to our stakeholders and show them how this thing works. So I'm going to switch to the prototype view now. Then I'm going to select this there. Then I'll select this text. Once this is clicked, I want this to swap to once you hover on this, not even click on the text. Once you hover on it, let it switch to this. And I say while hovering, right? Let it switch to this. And this, let this switch to this when clicked. So now want this text box to be the only trigger. So when the text box is clicked, let it switch to this. And when when we press enter on this, let it switch to this. So enter is what we want to use as the keypad to trigger the field button. So you can see I press enter on my keyboard and it's showing me that's the enter key. Then for here for the password to is this password, yeah, hide password. So we want this um so let me detach this instance here and select this, yes, and maybe detach it here too, but it's not necessary here. So what we want to do is we want this so that when you click this, we want to click this and be able to use it to trigger the view password variant. So on click, let it show this, and on click to let it go back to this. That's what we want. Then this one we don't need to connect anything. So now let's present this screen and see how it looks like. So I press Ctrl Alt Enter, and it is going to load this screen. So can you see? So if I turn this on, if I click this, you can see it can show my password and this. So look at this. When I hover on it, can you see? You might not see that difference very clearly, but it's there. You can see when I hover on it, the strokes became darker. But when I click it, what happens? The stroke turned to blue, right? And I can now type something. But when I press enter, what happens? When I press enter, what happens? Can you see? When I press enter. So because I did not change the one for the email, that's why it's still showing Daniel. But for the password, when I turn this on and off, what happens? So I hope you understand this, and I will encourage you to not just watch this once, watch it 2 times or 3 times, because I know that it will be a bit confusing, but it is not confusing, trust me. It is very straightforward and easy. And because I made a little mistake, it's not because I don't know what I'm doing, it's because I am actually teaching and I got a bit I got it mixed up a bit. So I will encourage you, if you feel I'm too fast, you can just the best thing to do is to just watch it again and again. So you can start by watching the whole tutorial from beginning to the end, then pick up your laptop and watch it again to follow along and be able to create this. So I will drop another video next week, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this, just give it a thumbs up and let me know so that I'll be encouraged to drop more videos. And you can also share with people that you know that they need to learn this. And you can also suggest anything you want me to create content on, any tutorial you want me to create. You can also give me suggestions in the comment section. So I think that will be all for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and turn on the notification bell if you're interested in this kind of tutorial. So that will be all for now, and I will see you in the very next video. Peace.